Hi everybody, this is Katie. Welcome to the first Code With Me video for this semester. Now, I like to do these because I think it's a great way to learn how to program where you're doing things with me. So to prepare for this video, you need to open this document that's in front of me on our screen. This is in Blackboard in the appropriate folder. It's called the Chapter 2 Code With Me assignment, and then this is the submission file. So you're going to open this up and end up pasting your code in here, or flowcharts, or pseudocode, or whatever we do in this video, and then you'll submit this in Blackboard. So I'll show you how to do that as well at the end of the video. So get your computer out, obviously, unless you're driving in your car and listening to this as like a podcast, then you can't code, you can't do this assignment. So you need to have your computer ready with Small Basic on there. We're not going to use the Raptor flowcharting tool in this program or in this Code With Me video yet, so that's all we need for right now. Sorry about that. Okay. So we're going to start by opening up the PDF file that was from Small Basic. Now, I have mine open. It is this document here, the Introducing Small Basic. And where you can get this, if you don't have it already, is in the resource folder in Blackboard. I added it to the resource folder. You should have downloaded it earlier, but at the very bottom, Introducing Small Basic PDF document. Save that to your computer and open that up, because we are going to go to these don't have page numbers, but they have chapters, and we're going to go to chapter 3. So there's chapter 1. And in Chapter 3, it starts talking about variables in input, processing, and output. And since our textbook doesn't do code specific for Small Basic, that's why we're going to reference this document. So I'm going to go to this page here and start referencing some material here in Chapter 3 of this Small Basic document. So I'll set that aside for now. You have that in front of you. Now we're going to go to Small Basic, so you have it on your computer, and we're going to start by creating a new file. So I'm going to make mine larger. This is Code With Me, so you're doing exactly what I'm doing right now on the computer so that you can turn this in for grading. It's worth points. I'm going to save this to begin with. Remember, you can't run programs in Small Basic until you save them. So you save them first. So I went to my CIS116 Programs folder, and I'm going to call this Code, or CWM for Code With Me Chapter 2. And I could have multiple examples in here or whatever, but I've named it, so now I can run it. So you've watched the lecture video, or you attended a lecture in class, and we know all of these concepts about input, processing, and output. Now to begin, the way that we're going to set up our programs in our assignment is to always include internal documentation. So this is done with a semicolon at the beginning, and not a semicolon, that's a semicolon, a apostrophe, and then we're going to always include things like the date, your name, into your program, and what the program does. And I'll use internal documentation a lot to explain difficult pieces of code. So in Small Basic it comes up as green. In other languages it's usually red or green. Christmas colors. And we always want to include the name, the date. So today, for example, September 16th. If you're in the winter class, it'll be probably January something. In summer, May. But, put the date, and you'll see this structure at the beginning. So I do want you to type this. So I want you to type exactly what I am doing with each line. So this program is code with me for chapter 2, and it shows the major concepts. Now if you had to go on and continue it, you could use another apostrophe and just continue your however you want to structure it. This is all internal documentation, such as input, processing, and output. There. So now I have 4 lines of code. I'm going to add one more just because I think it's nice to have a little line here. And then that separates my header of my file from my code, which I'm going to start here. Now, anything that's internal documentation, in the lecture video, we looked at this at the very end of the chapter. This was, excuse me, I'm actually homesick today, so I'm sharing my germs with my headset and not actual real-life students. So I'm sorry if I sound stuffy and icky, but we'll make it through, and I really hope you enjoy these code with me because they're fun. We get to do things. But anyway, in the back of chapter 2, in the lecture video, we talked about internal documentation or comments. These are done in all programming languages, and they're not part of the syntax. You don't have to follow any rules. You can put whatever you want in there. This here is called white space. So like line 6, I have an empty line, and I do that just so my program is easier to read, kind of like how you format in Word. But I don't have to have it. I can have a line of code on each line, or you can kind of double space things how you see fit. I do that because it's easier to read. So a couple important terms I just talked about, white space and internal documentation. So pause if you need to and read about what those things are. I'm going to look at page 77 at the same time and use this PDF here as a guide to how to do things like write, line, read, and calculations. So I'll be coming back to that, and at the same time looking at the exercises on page 77. Now let me see, I think I can pull that up in my documents as well, so let me grab it real quick. Okay, I found what I was looking for. I have the textbook up here. I have this thing called CourseSmart, and I can get the PDFs, or not, I can't download them, but I can see and use them, the books here, so that will help us to see what we're doing instead of saying look at page 77. But that's where we are, and I'm starting with some of these programming exercises, and in some cases we also have case projects that we'll do, but we're going to pick some of these exercises to do in this Code With Me video. So the first one that we're going to look at is going to be one that does some input, some processing, and some output. So if we look at, let's say, let me look through these real quick and find the perfect program so we can do as an example. Question 1 is just output, so we would just use write statements, but we want to do IPO, input, processing, and output, which is what this chapter is. So let's take a look at that. Let's just start with the first one, or the second one, sales prediction. So that's going to be our first example. So if we go back over here, what we're going to do is a company has determined that its annual profit is typically 23% of total sales. We're going to design a program that asks the user to enter a projected amount of sales and then displays the profit, which is 23% of that. So we want to determine the annual profit. So we have to look at our program in these steps. The first thing we need to do is think about, I'm just going to write these comments here. And you don't have to do this if you don't want, but we do have to code. So we're going to figure out what variables will our program have to use. So I like to do this in our input, our processing, and our output variables. Now in the book, where we're referencing, let me go back to the textbook, where it talks about variables. The only thing is this zooms through the chapters really quick. If I go there, let me go up. It might be faster if I look in the book. This is a really good program to go through too, the batting average program, because it does what we're doing, but what input is received, what processes are going to happen, and what output is going to take place, and that will help us determine what our variables are going to be. So there is this section in the book. Let me just look in the paper part. Page 57. So let me just go there real quick. Okay, it's variable declaration and data types. So the things that we need to think about when we create variables are the names and the types of data. So remember, we have reals, we have integers, and we have strings. Now the next part, and there's an example, the next important part of the book is, in part of the process of determining what your variables are, is think about what needs to be input, what needs to be processed, and what needs to be output, and if any of those have to be stored in a variable. So if so, then we're going to create a variable for that. So I can't find the exact page, but if we go back to the assignment, we need to calculate the annual profit. So we're going to create a variable for that. So we'll think about our input variables and our calculated or our processing variables. And then sometimes we have things that are stored in the output, but we're just going to break it apart into these two. So I just had said I'm going to have to create one that stores the annual profit. So I'm going to make that a real data type, and this is not real code, it's just comments right now, but it's a real data type as opposed to an integer, because it's money and it will store a floating point or a decimal value. So that's one variable, and this also is a processing variable, or something that we're going to calculate. I can't spell variable today. Another variable that we're going to use, so step one, what are our variables going to be? So we're trying to calculate the annual profit, and we're going to do that based on the total sales. So we're writing a program that asks the user to enter. So when you read that, those are things that should click in your brain. We need to enter in data. So we need to enter in total sales, and then it displays the profit. So we'll create another variable called real again, and then total sales. And again, it's a real because it's a money. And then this is going to be, this is a input variable. So in most programming languages, you actually declare those variables. In Small Basic, you don't have to, so until they're used. So we can we don't have to declare them. We're going to then go on to step 2, which is our input. So take in any values or values for variables that our program is asking us to do. Now remember, I type fast, so you don't have to. I won't give you my file here because you're creating it at the same time, but you can pause. But remember, all this green and everything that starts with a apostrophe is internal documentation, so it's not actually part of the code, but I use it to explain to you what's going on. So how do we do input? Well, let's go over to our PDF because we're doing variables here, and in Small Basic we're going to ask the question, like enter your name or enter your telephone number, enter the projected annual sales. And we don't have data types in Small Basic, so we are just going to say here text dot, I can always do that, text dot write line. Actually, I'm going to just do a write, and text what? Text window dot write. Write again doesn't have that space, and then open, and then quotes, and I'm going to say enter the projected sales amount. And then I'll end my string literal and end my parentheses. Now these are syntax specific, so you have to get the language right. So we're just printing that out to the screen by saying enter the projected sales. Now if you don't know some of these keywords that I'm using, like syntax and the reals and input variables, make sure you go back and watch the video. The lecture video, because you've already read the chapter, so we're now applying what we learned. We're going to put this into our variable called annual profit. Now this is something that we've created. So these are lines of code now, so we have to be syntax specific. And the line to enter in lines of code is text window.read, and then you have empty parentheses. Now you'll see me do this about 8 million times, but I will probably make mistakes and add a lot of semicolons at the end of my sentences, because in every other language, statements are ended with a semicolon. So I'm not used to Small Basic yet, and I still make that mistake. So that's step 2. Now let's see what happens. I'm going to save my program and I'm going to run it. And what we have so far, this is super small. I think every time I edit the font it might just go back, so let's see what happens. But here I have in my code, see all this green? That didn't come up in my program, but I have entered the projected sales amount. So let's say my company is going to make $10,000 this year. It's a small company, it's a starter. I hit enter, so I've asked for input from the keyboard, so I put in whatever amount. I hit enter, and then my program ends. Why does it end? Because I haven't written any more code. So let's go down to step 3, and this is our process. Step 1 really is declare our variables too. And then our input, and let me just capitalize this so you can see clearly what we're doing. Our process are performing any calculations that must be done. So if we look at the assignment again, our annual profit is typically 23% of the sales. And then here's a hint, use 0.23 to represent 23%, because if you just said, if you're desk checking this and you say, if I make $10,000 and I'm going to multiply that by 23, that's going to give me $230,000. Well, that doesn't make sense that that's my profit. So Where's clear? So we're going to multiply it by a percentage. So back in our code, we'll do our calculations. Calculations in pseudocode, you just write it out. We did an example in our lecture video. But if you are looking at this document here, and you go down a couple pages, rules for naming variables, okay, playing with numbers. Calculations are used using our basic operators, equals, additions, multiplication signs. So they're very straightforward. One thing you can't do, so you have to put the storage variable on the left side. So you have to do like number 3 equals number 1 plus number 2. It can't be number 1 plus number 2 equals number 3. That doesn't work. So make sure you read through this section on playing with numbers, and it shows you how to use the basic calculations, multiplication, division, I just said that, addition and subtraction, and remember always the order of operations. So this document here, that's the end of it, where it shows you how to use a bunch of examples. So I won't keep going back to that, but let's do our calculated variable now. The one that we're calculating is, oh, I see I did this wrong already. Ding, ding, ding. Hopefully you caught this. Annual profit. I'm not asking for annual profit. This is a processing or calculated variable. I'm inputting total sales. Jeez. This is the bad point, or the good point. You see I'm a person who makes mistakes on our very simple, easy programs to begin with too. But hopefully you're caught that earlier, and you're like probably yelling at the screen, no, you're inputting total sales and you're calculating annual profit. So I made that little slight mistake. I'm going to blame that on the cold medicine, okay, people? So let's see, annual profit, this is a new variable we're going to create, and annual profit is total sales. Now once you start typing it, it comes up and you just can hit enter, and we're multiplying that using the asterisk symbol. So shift 8 on your keyboard, and that we're doing times 23. So 23 is just it's part of our calculations. So again, if we made $10,000 in our company and we get 23% of that as our profit, we'll make $2,300. So we've sold $10,000 worth of product. It cost us $7,200 to $7,800 to run the business, basically. And then this is what comes back to our pocket. So now we can run our program again, and what will you see that happens? Nothing different. So again, let's say we made $10,000. It still ends because processing, it doesn't have any write statements. It's not doing anything to the screen. It's just doing that in the background. So let's go to step 4, and this is our output. And you can display this, you know, how it tells you to do, and you can get fancy with it, and we'll learn different things as we go on. But this program wants us to display what? It says, design a program that asks the user to enter total sales, check, we did that, and then displays the profit that will be made from that amount. So you can write that in a couple different ways. Display the profit. We're going to use the text window, and I'm going to use the right line this time because right line adds a space, and I'm going to say I'm going to concatenate and just say the total sales were, and then I'll put a $sign right here, and then an end quote, end parenthesis, not end parenthesis yet, and then plus total sales, and then end parenthesis. Now if you forget something like end parenthesis and go down to write your next line, remember when you run it, you're going to get a syntax error. These syntax errors, when you double click on them, it points you to the line of code where your syntax error is. However, it doesn't tell you, hey, you're missing a parenthesis. You just have to fix it or learn what's wrong with your syntax. So then we would add our parenthesis and we could run it again. And now let's see what happens. Whoops, I hit the enter key. So I'll run it. I'll enter in $15,000. So I made $15,000 in sales. And then it says the total sales were $15,000. Okay. So what else do we want to display? We want to display another text window, and we want to display annual profit. So text window, what I got to lock up here. Text window dot write line. I can't see what's going on when that comes up. And see, I have it spelled wrong here. It's just doing that because of I got the video running to record this, and oh, I put test again. Dang it, that's why. The annual profit is $, quote, and then I want to add the variable of the annual profit and another parenthesis, and that is my entire program. It does input, it does process, and it does output. And when we do when you do your real assignment on your own, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have documentation. You're going to define what your variables are as documentation. You're going to do some input. You're going to do some some processing, and you're going to do some output. Now, the last thing that we want to do is to run our program and test our sample output. So I'm going to run it and check this out. Let's say that our projected sales are $10,000. I hit enter. It calculates my annual profit as $2,300. Let's run it again. If I make $86,500 in projected sales, and 23% of that is $19,895. So you can use this generic program for any business. So go run out and find someone to buy it now and say, you know, what is your projected sales? Oh, you think you're going to make $950,000 in sales this year? Okay, well then you'll be making $218,500. So you can run it multiple times. Save that there. All right, 1 second, because I want to see where we can copy our sample output, but I got to check something real quick. Okay, one of the last things that we are going to do is always include some sample output in our program. So how you can do this, when you run your program and you enter in any value and you get the results, you can copy this data by clicking on this button here, edit, mark, and then highlighting, and then go back up to this little window, edit, and copy. And then go over to your program, go back to your program, and paste it there. Now, because these are, I just did a Control V to paste it. I'll show you that again because we're going to do one really super quick program. But when you paste it, it's not documented out. So if you try to run it now, you're going to get errors because it's going to look at these as lines of code. 25 line is 20, see 25, 26, 27, 28. It's going to look at that as lines of code. So you have to comment those out. So put an apostrophe in each line there so that now you can run it and it goes back. So I'll only require one sample output. So now we have this program here. We're going to save that. I want you to, in the assignment folder, you'll see this submission file here. This is the one that was open. So we're going to open that, excuse me, and save it. Follow these instructions here. You're going to save it to your computer. So enable editing, and I'm going to save mine. So save as. I'm just put mine on the desktop for now. So it's Chapter 2 Code With Me assignment file, and I'm going to save it. You can add your name onto it or not, but this is now I downloaded it. I'm going to take my code from here. I'm going to do Control A to copy everything. Oh, let's delete those lines that have nothing on there. I'm going to do Control A and then a Control C to copy. Or you can take your mouse, highlight everything, and then click this thing here, copy. And then we'll go back over to Word. We're going to go to our first sample. So that would be here, where it says Post Code With Me sample here. Our paste, we're going to go up and paste it. You can hit this button here. I like the option Control V. Excuse me. So now that's pasted there. If you want, you can highlight that or format it somehow, but when you paste from Visual or Small Basic to Word, it might change some of the things as far as spacing goes. You can see this is kind of wonky up here, but you don't, once you paste it, don't edit it, don't change this. It should be exactly, don't do what I just did. It should be exactly what your code looks like in here. So that is our first one, what we did. So we can save that because we're going to do a couple programs in our Code With Me videos for the most part. That's our first example. Let's do another super quick one without all this documentation so that we can follow a program that is similar to the homework assignment, because I won't make a video for that. So I'm going to save this, and then I will open a new one. So I'll do New, and make this a little bigger. Use your first one as an example if you want to. It's still open in the background. And let's save this one. And I'm going to call this Code With Me. This is still Chapter 2. So we'll say Chapter 2, second example, so we know what it is. Bam. You can put all your documentation in there if you want. But we're just going to go through and do our steps. So step 1, declare variables. And then our next step, name of this chapter, step 2, process our input. Step 3, do any calculations or processes. And then step 4, our output. So those are 4 steps. Let's look and pick a quick program from our book. Okay, this one's got a couple different things going on. Let's do total purchase. Let me show you too while we're still got you. I have these solution files. These are kind of good to see. So the one we just did was 2-2. So we did sales total, profit. We named our variables different. That's okay. We did an input, we did our calculations, and we did our profit. So here you can see how they did the pseudocode, and we just did real code. And then they have the flow chart So you have pseudocode and flowchart to solve that problem. So let's do this last program together. Oh, where'd it go? Let's do this last one together so you can do the assignment on your own. Total purchase. So reading it, I'm going to read it out of the book. Question, a customer in a store is purchasing 5 items. Design a program that asks the user for the price of each item. So we're going to go over here. We're going to have a real item 1 price. And then we're going to have a variable item 2 price. Because it says there's 5 items and we want to ask them what the price is of all these items, right? I haven't looked at the solution yet, so we're just going blind like how you would do if you were to go through these in your assignment. So it purchased 5 items. We designed it to ask for the price of each item. So it says to ask, so we know this is an input variable. And guess what? They all are. So I'm just going to add these. I'm going to copy and paste. So I know that's an input, that's an input, that's an input, and this is an input. And what that means is when I get down to step 2, I know I'm going to input those things. Okay. Ask the price of each item and then displays the subtotal of the sale, which is the amount of sales tax and the the subtotal of the sale, the amount of sales tax, and the total. So those are things we're going to have to calculate. Real subtotal, we'll create a subtotal one. And that's a calculated variable. We'll create a real tax on this purchase, so a real sales tax variable, and that is a calculated variable. And then we'll create one that is our total, and that's another calculated variable. So our input. This is practice using small basic. Let me just do a quick save because I've got some things in there now. Line 14, I'm going to start with my input. So my program asks for the price of each item. So I'll do text window dot write and then open that up and then say enter the price for item 1 and that, and then I'm going to read that in text input. See, if you forget your syntax like I just did, you can always go back to the last program and say, how did I input again? I say total sales or item 1 price equals text window dot read. So I'm looking at my last example. This is probably going off to say finish up this video. So we want to say, okay, what's the price of item 1? I want to say item 1 price is equal to, geez, I forgot the syntax already. Read, text window dot read. Text window dot read. And then I'm going to repeat that for the second item. So lines 14 and 15 take in the first item price and text window dot write and I'll just stop talking and type these. They're all going to be the same. Item 2 price equals, it's all going to be the same process, I mean, not the same variable name. You see how we're following the same structure. So that'll read in price 1, this will read in price 2. So you keep going and do for all 5 items. If you copy and paste make sure you change the variable names and the numbers. So I won't copy and paste in here. You might want to because it probably be faster. Now, as I'm typing, I'm checking that my variables are spelled right, because once you spell a variable, it always has to be referenced that way. And if you misspell it when you reference it later on, you need to misspell it there too. So spell your variables exactly how you've declared them. And my last one. Now, always if I'm going too fast, you can pause it. Okay, see how I didn't put any space there? That's all white space. It doesn't matter if you have it there or not. So that's all that my program has told me to enter. At any time, you can compile and run it to see if you have syntax errors. If you do, then you need to fix them. Okay, so let's go down to a process. So now we know we have subtotal, tax, and total that we need to calculate. We can't calculate total until we have subtotal, and we can't calculate total until we have the tax calculated. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, you've bought things at the store before. We know what the subtotal is. Subtotal is our variable, and that's equal to item 1 price plus item 2 price plus item 3 plus item 4 plus item 5. Now, you want to be very, very careful that you don't say that you don't say subtotal equals item 1 price plus item 1 price, because then you're not adding all the prices up. You need all different prices. Now we're going to calculate tax, and tax is going to be the subtotal times 0.06. So you go to the dollar store, let's say dollar store. You buy $15 worth of items, and tax is 6%, so you do 0.06. You're paying 90 cents in tax. So that's what would be stored here in this variable. So what is my total? Well, that would then be, my grand total is our subtotal plus the tax. Those are calculations. Now these things, when you're figuring out the exercises, you have to walk through the planning of those. You have to say, how do I calculate the tax? How do I calculate the subtotal? And test it that way. So my output, it says display those three things. I'm not going to display all my item prices, but I am going to display text window dot right line, and I'm going to display kind of like a receipt subtotal, and let's do like bam bam just to make it a little different. And that's plus subtotal variable, and end my parenthesis, and then I'll display tax. You've all got a receipt from somewhere. Kind of looks like this, right? Plus tax, and then my total that's due, See, I'm making syntax errors as I'm typing, but then I'm also figuring them out and going back. So before I run it, let's just do a quick overview, and you can check your code. I've always done step 1 where I've declared my variables. It doesn't matter what you type in here, but remember, no spaces in variable names. It cannot start with a number, and usually no special characters. I break mine apart into input and calculated because that's helpful to me to figure out what I need to do in steps 2 and 3. Step 2, double check this with your program. Make sure you're saying item 1 price, item 2, item 3, item 4, and item 5. If, for example, you put item 2 here again, you have no value for item 3, so that's a problem. So double check that. Computers can't think for us. We need to be the logical part of this process. Here's my processes or my calculations. I calculate subtotal. Again, double check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's how we do tax. Here's how we do total. And then this is what our output is. Now I'm going to go down here I'm going to go down here a second. I don't know what I'm saying. A few lines and leave a spot for my sample output. And I'm going to run my program. And I'll make me edit this a little bit again so you can actually see it running. And then we'll enter in our price. So $8.99, $4.67. Have you ever been to Hobby Lobby? They actually enter in the prices of each item in the register. So they don't have like a scanner. So this is like the same thing that you would use there at some stores that don't have new technology. And then let's say we bought a $28.50 item. So those are the prices of my 5 items. Part of the programming process, get your calculator out. You want to make sure your program does things right. Add them all in. Add them all up. Do your desk checking. Hit enter. Here's my subtotal. Here's my tax. And there's my total. Make sure with your calculator that if they put in these values, this is what it comes out to. You can put anything in and it should come up with different values every time, depending on the price of those 5 items. So I'm going to copy this again, go down to edit and then mark. I'll highlight and then hit this button in the corner again and then edit and copy. I'll go back to my program here and paste it. And again, remember, go back and put apostrophe in front of each thing so that it doesn't so that it makes it a comment. And by the way, most programming languages have a way for you to comment a whole block, so you don't have to do it line by line, but this one doesn't. Okay, that's our last program that we're going to do in the code with me. I know this is long, but you'll be prepared for the assignments that you need to do on your own. So I'm going to copy this. Control A, Control C. I'm going to go over to my submission file. So there's my first one. Here's my second one. Bam. Oh, look how pretty that one copied my... That one is really how I want it, where it copies all of my colors. What did I might go back real quick. Look at this one. See what I did wrong here. I'm going to copy that and... Oh, I think because I highlighted it, but I'm going to do Control A and Control C. And then I'm just going to replace this messy looking code here because that is messy. Bang. So, shoot. Try to keep the formatting in place. So this Code With Me assignment's done. It's worth 50 points. The Code With Me sample, this is sample 1. You can label it 1 on calculating total sales or calculating annual profit. However you want to label that. And then in this Code With Me we have another one, and this one is calculating total sales. So that's all for this assignment. Now save it, bing, go over to Blackboard. Here's something else you have to do. Go over to Blackboard where the assignment is. Click here to submit it. Now I'm in the teacher part, so I got it. These dates will be different for yours, but you want to do two things. Attach it, so browse my computer, go to where your file is. Remember, I put mine on my desktop, so here it is right here. You can check it out. There it is. And then I also want you to include a statement in the comment box on if it worked or not. So here's a comment that I get to read when I grade your assignment, and you can say all worked great, or it didn't work, or what happened, what went wrong, what you thought about the video, whatever you want in there. But I do want to know if it worked or not. And then you submit it, and it's a super duper easy 50 points because we did it together. So thank you for listening to this code with me. I know it'll take a while to do because you're listening and going at the same time, but it's done. You have that assignment done, and then there's another assignment in this section as well. So thank you.